Every time we talk, he has something new to report. All the UFO sightings last year made him go bonkers. Apparently, the lead singer from Blink-182 is way into this stuff. Once he told me he was close to decrypting something called the Voynich manuscript. I'm a little skeptical, but whatever. He thinks there may be advanced civilizations living at the bottom of the sea that we haven't discovered yet. When he talks about this stuff, I usually just nod. It's not really my thing. But a few weeks ago, he suggested we go for a picnic in a nearby nature preserve. Okay, was all I said to that. We drove for about 45 minutes. I probably don't spend as much time in nature as I should. I do yoga because that helps me stay grounded, but I stay indoors whenever I can. Tiago loves nature, bae. He's always talking about how nature is so much stronger and smarter than humans. I find that intimidating, but it's probably true. He stopped the car at a little spot off-road that didn't even have a parking lot. A dirt path led into the trees. He grabbed the picnic basket and asked me to grab the cooler. "How far are we going?" I asked. "Not far," he said, and started down the path. I followed him, looking around constantly. I trust Tiago, but if I got lost out here, I wanted to be able to find my way back. These woods were full of cedar trees. I heard somewhere that each leaf of a cedar tree has the vitamin C of 4 oranges. That's a lot of vitamin C. We stopped by a large rock overlooking a slope. Through the trees, I could see a narrow river with no footbridge. People must not have come out there very often. Though it was beautiful, I knew Tiago had another reason for bringing me here. "So," he said, "how's the sandwich?" "It's fine," I said. "Can we talk?" "We are talking. You know what I mean." I took a long drink of my iced tea. I looked him in the eye. "What's this about? Do you notice anything weird about this place? Other than the fact that we're miles from anywhere with no one in sight?" "No, There's a trail a mile back," he said. "We drove past it. There's plenty of people on it. There's another trail a mile up the road. But it doesn't cross with this one. Doesn't that seem weird? I don't know, maybe people don't like this trail as much. Do you like it? I've barely seen it. We've only done like half a mile. You know how some trails have those little things at the start that say what animals and how far the trail is? Like they give you the history of the park and stuff?" "Yes," I said. "Why? Do you see any of that here? Maybe there's nothing interesting about this spot." "Oh, yes, there is. I'll show you." We finished eating. He told me to follow him down the slope. It was steep. I almost lost my balance several times and would have turned back except that something about this spot did seem strange to me. For one thing, it was cooler out here than it should be. It was the height of summer, but I still needed my jacket. When I listened closely, I swore I could hear a metallic clicking, as if there was a huge clock nearby. There was no machinery in sight. We reached the bottom of the slope. I thought Tiago would lead me to the river, but instead he showed me to a small cave. Running into the side of the rock that we had just sat on top of, a trickle of water from the river ran into its mouth. I couldn't see anything inside. The light only penetrated about 5 or 10 feet. But there was no mistaking it that the clicking came from inside the cave. "What is that sound?" I said. "I don't know," said Tiago. He pulled a flashlight out of his pocket. "I want us to find out." "Tiago," I said, "this is crazy. If there's something in there, I'm sure somebody else knows about it. Aliens wouldn't just land in a cave and not try to cover it up or anything." Tiago picked up a rock and threw it into the cave. I heard it hit a wall. I stepped into the cave using my phone for light. The cave reached a dead end after about 30 feet, yet the whirring and clicking was louder than ever. I looked around. The sound must have been coming through a crack in the rocks, except I couldn't find one. Thiago followed me into the cave. He kept setting his feet down louder than he needed to. Eventually, he stopped. He tapped his foot on the rock just to be sure. It sounded hollow. "Is something down there?" I asked. Thiago stared down at the hollow rock. "I didn't really know the guy," he said. "We met at a con. He said he was from around here. When I asked him if he knew any good hiking spots, he told me about this little girl who went missing at a campsite. She went camping with her family and just wandered off. Her sister woke up in the middle of the night and saw her leaving the tent. She thought she was going to the bathroom, but they wake up in the morning and she hasn't come back. The tent was still open. She didn't even take her shoes." "Did she come here?" I asked. "I don't know. This guy from the con, he was on the search party. They never found her. But he found this cave. He told me about the sound in here, said you could only hear it at certain times of day and not every day. Maybe they just come to visit sometimes." "Who?" He picked up a rock the size of a basketball and knelt over the hollow spot in the rock. He raised the rock over his head. "It's time to find out." "Stop," said a little girl's voice. Thiago and I looked at the entrance. A girl stood there watching us. She came closer. I noticed that she was not wearing shoes. She had olive skin. I guessed her to be about 12. "Are you the girl?" asked Thiago. "I saw your picture. Your family?" The girl shook her head. She stepped to the left wall of the cave and started tapping on it with her knuckles. "If you want to get down there, you don't go through the floor," she said. "I mean, you can, but the fall will kill you." "So how do we get in?" I asked. "You don't get in," said the girl. "More like it gets you." "What?" I said. She picked up a small rock and threw it at the ceiling. The sound it made as it hit was like a knock on a door. The ceiling was empty too. After the rock hit, a rumbling sounded above us. "That's where they are," she said. "You have to be careful. If you try to get in before they let you, you can die." The rumbling was getting louder. The whole cave started shaking. I was thinking we should get out of the cave, and pebbles and dirt were falling from the ceiling. I started towards the mouth, but Thiago grabbed my shoulder. "We've come this far," he said. "I want to find out where it goes." I didn't try to break his grip. The little girl came towards us as the rumbling grew louder and louder. I was sure we would get crushed by something falling on us. Instead, the ceiling split open and fell away from us, as if gravity had reversed itself. My mouth fell open. The three of us were sucked into the chasm. We were falling up. I didn't know how any of this was possible. As we flew upwards into the opening that should have taken us through the top of the rock we had just sat on, I felt Tiago's grip on my shoulder. He wanted this. I'd heard stories of people who had wandered off into the woods and been found miles away with no dirt on them, or footprints showing how they got there. This little girl had survived for a year in the woods without shoes or even dirtying her clothes. I gripped Tiago's shoulder back. We were going to find out where this rabbit hole led together. I was only a little frightened. We didn't fall for very long. After a few seconds, we emerged into a larger cavern and slowed just before we hit the ground. I let go of Tiago and he let go of me. We landed with the force of someone setting a plate down on a table. I stood up and looked around. Above me was a rocky ceiling. For a second it rippled like the surface of a lake. Then it solidified. Tiago stood up. "There's light. Where's it coming from?" "Somewhere in the center," I said. The floor was uneven, but we climbed over the jagged rock formations. Though we moved at the same speed, Tiago got to the center a few seconds before I did. I couldn't figure that out. When I caught up with him, I saw a pool in the floor with something glowing under the surface. Whatever it was bright enough to faintly illuminate the whole space. "It's very peaceful," said Tiago, "almost like we're dead." "Where's the girl?" I said. "I'm right here," said a voice above and to the side. We looked and saw her walking down the wall of the cavern, like gravity was pulling her in a different direction. She stepped from the wall to the floor and stood level with us. "What happened? How did you get here?" I said. "I walked," she said. "Are we in another dimension?" asked Tiago. "Is that why gravity works different here?" "Well, it works differently for me," she said. "I don't think you should try walking on the walls." "Who are you?" I asked. "Marita," she said. "Pleased to meet you." "How do you know about this place?" asked Tiago. Marita didn't answer. She walked past us and over to the pool. I thought she would dip a toe into the water, but instead she just looked straight into the glowing orb under the surface. I couldn't look at it directly. It was like the sun, but she didn't seem to mind the intensity of the light. "It's weird," she said. "When I was little, my mom would read me picture books. I always wished I could take the characters out of the books and make them real so I could play with them. But my mom said I couldn't do that because they were just pictures. What a weird thing to say to a little kid." "Is this place like one of those books?" I asked. "You're missing the point," she said. "You can't take the cat in the hat out of the book because he's two-dimensional. We're three-dimensional. He's not meant for this space." "What are you saying?" said Tiago. "That we're in a four-dimensional space? Is that why you can walk on walls?" "The guys who built the machine," she said. "They're in four dimensions. That's why you couldn't see what was making that sound. It's above you. Well, not above, but like above you in a way that you don't have a word for." "Could you see it?" I said. She nodded. "Describe it to me." "It looks kind of like a typewriter crossed with a grandfather clock," she said, "with a big pendulum that swings, well, not below it, but below it in a way that we don't have a word for," Tiago said. "You're getting it," she said. "What's the point of all of this?" I asked. "Did they bring us here on purpose, or are we just in their way?" I was about to ask another question, but then the ground underneath me shifted. There wasn't any rumbling or anything. The rocks just slid underneath my feet as if I were moonwalking over them. Tiago was now directly above me. The walls, ceiling, and floor of the cave had mixed together like different paint colors and became indistinguishable. The pool in the center was now a stream branching off in all directions, with a glow emanating from every branch. Marita had not moved at all. I felt as if we were on the inside of a globe, with me standing on top, Tiago standing on the bottom, and Marita standing in the center. "They're shifting it," said Marita. "It's like how, if you try to map out the world on a flat surface, you can't do it without distorting the size and shape of everything. The only way to show it accurately is to put it on a globe." "Well, I hope they don't do it again," I said. "This is a little too weird." "I can hear the clicking again," said Tiago. "I must be close to it." "You're never far away," said Marita. "What's so special about that cave?" I asked. "Is it the only place in the world like that?" "It's not," said Tiago. "I did some research. There's other places like it. There's one in the Philippines, also two in Russia. It's just like this. There's a clicking sometimes, and people go missing near there, but not very often, so nobody notices anything's wrong." "It's so fucking weird," I said. "I mean, reality's like this for them. They can just move stuff around." "Are you intimidated?" asked Marita. "A little," I said. "Do you like it? Is that why you stay with them?" "I stay here because it's the only place I belong," she said. "But I like to visit your dimensions sometimes." "Well," I said, "this is interesting, but I think it's time to go." My surroundings changed again. This time I was sitting in a tree 50 feet off the ground. I looked around. The forest did not look like the one I had just been in. It was very cold. I guessed that I was somewhere far north of my home. I tried to move gingerly, but the branch underneath me broke. As I fell straight down, I banged my shin on a bough. I cried out in pain, but was much more concerned about what would happen when I hit the ground, or I was about 10 feet from the ground when I plunged into a body of water, knocking the wind out of me. Light blinded me. I shut my eyes. I tried to swim towards the surface, but had no idea where it was. Somebody grabbed me and pulled me with them. We broke the surface of the water. My rescuer pulled me onto the ground and asked if I was okay. I recognized Tiago's voice. "My leg," I said once I had regained my breath. I was back in the cavern. It had its original layout, with the pool with the orb in the center. I had not felt any heat while underwater. The orb gave off light but not warmth. I pulled up the right leg of my jeans, Thiago, and leaned forward. "It's not broken," he said. "Can you walk?" "In a minute," I said. "What happened?" "They don't like it when you say the word," said Marita. "You were about to say it. It starts with H." "Well, that's bullshit," I said. "If they think—" "Don't," said Marita, her voice barely more than a whisper. "You know what's crazy?" said Tiago. "A lot of unsolved mysteries have really obvious explanations. Do you remember Malaysian Flight 370? "Vaguely," I said. "Did they ever figure out what happened?" "Probably the pilot crashed it on purpose," he said. "He was sick. He just wanted to die. I guess he didn't care if he took everyone with him." "Yeah, but this isn't obvious," said Tiago. "If you told me it was four-dimensional beings took the girl and live in this cavern, I don't know what I would have said." "I thought you liked that stuff," I said. "I did. I mean, I do. But you're right. We don't belong here." "I don't know if they will let you," said Marita. "Why not?" I asked. "Are they afraid we'll tell everyone? Like the fire-bending master with Zuko and Aang." "Yeah, but that guy was joking," said Tiago. "Do you want us to stay?" he asked Marita. Her posture stiffened. "I mean, I don't care, but—" "You're lonely," I said. "You don't want to go back to your family, but you hate not having any people here to talk to." "Nobody brought you here," said Marita. "You found the cave." "But you brought us here," said Tiago, gesturing at his surroundings. Marita put her hands to her forehead. It was the most vulnerable I had ever seen her look. "I can't go back," she said. "It's not just my family. I live in 4 dimensions. I can't go back to 3. It's just not right. Will you stay here, please?" Thiago and I shook our heads. "We have to go back," I said. I stopped myself before using the H word. "Well, then you have to talk to them," she said, "because I can't open the ceiling up." "I'm sorry." "Where are they?" I asked. She pointed into the water. I looked at the glowing orb. The light didn't hurt my eyes as much, but that didn't mean I wanted to swim down there. With some difficulty, I stood up. Thiago was right. This would feel a little like dying. I began to strip down to my shorts. "Good thing I left my phone in the car," I said. Thiago smiled. Marita looked disappointed. I think she was expecting us to stay with her forever. Maybe being in 4 dimensions also stunts your emotions. Now that I was in no more than my shorts, I approached the water. The orb was essentially a perfectly spherical light bulb, no visible cracks or dents anywhere. I wondered how many other people had found their way here. Did the orb let anyone go back? I stepped into the water. It was lukewarm. Just before my head went underwater, I stopped. "What do I tell them?" I said. "Tell them they can't just hold us prisoner," said Tiago. "It's not right." "Will they listen?" "Well, I guess you could challenge them to an Agni Kai." "Very funny." I dove under the surface and swam down towards the orb. The water didn't bother my eyes, although it was now very hard to tell which way was up. It looked like the surface was in every direction. Somehow I didn't feel the need to come back up for air. The orb was right in front of me. I came closer. I'm not sure if I touched the orb or if it reached out to me. All I knew is that I was now sitting at the table in my living room. There's no dining room in my house, and the kitchen is too small for a table. So I eat all my meals in the living room. I was fully dressed and able to breathe. The refrigerator door closed, and my fifth-grade teacher, Mr. Ford, came into the room carrying 2 glasses of iced tea. "How have you been?" he asked, as he sat across from me and set 1 glass in front of me. Bubbles came from my mouth as I spoke. This was too weird. I was still underwater, but experiencing all of this. What were Tiago and Marita seeing right now? "It's peach tea," said Mr. Ford as he took a sip. "Your favorite." I took a sip. It was good. He even knew that I liked it without sweetener. "Are you them?" I asked. He looked confused. "The 4-dimensional people? Is this how you talk to us? This place looks like my home." "This is your home," said Mr. Ford. He was a stocky, red-headed man with a beard. "If you walk out your front door, you can say hi to your neighbors. I think they're just getting home. Will they see that I'm making bubbles? They'll probably just think you have the hiccups." "What do you want?" I asked. "I mean, why any of this? Why come to Earth?" "You're asking me," he said. "I'm just your old teacher." "Come on," I said. Okay, he said with a half smile. He did not smile like my old teacher. Mr. Ford always smiled with his whole mouth. "Truth is, we don't know what to make of you guys." "What, humans?" "Yeah, I mean, some of us think we should just leave you alone, and some of us think maybe you have something to teach us." "What about Marita?" "She's a special case," he said. "I don't know how, but she found her way to us. It's not the first time, actually. Maybe that's why we keep coming here." "What's that ticking sound?" "You mean, what's the machine do? It's how we get around. We travel through different dimensions. The machine helps us figure out where we're going, when we're going." I finished my iced tea. "See, most of the time, if aliens are coming to Earth, people think it's either to study us or invade. You sound like you can't make up your minds." "Well, we're not really aliens." He sipped his iced tea. I looked out the window. The side of the house on the right was visible, but not the front. I couldn't hear anything from where I sat, but that didn't mean the neighbors weren't home. The old man didn't have conversations on his porch as often as he used to. "What are you thinking?" asked Mr. Ford. "I'm thinking about what I'm going to do now that I know you guys are out there," I said. "I don't know who will believe me. I mean, I've had some pretty crazy shit happen to me, but now I know that there's... Whatever you say you are, you're not from Earth. I guess you don't want us to know about you." Mr. Ford sipped his iced tea again. Sometimes he acted like my teacher and sometimes not. The way he steepled his fingers as I spoke was a perfect imitation. "You gotta send us back," I said. "Marita can stay with you. She'll be fine. But Tiago and me, we have families and stuff." Mr. Ford stood up suddenly. He knocked over his glass, causing the remainder of the iced tea to spill over the tabletop. I could hear my neighbor's door open. The old man was about to have a seat and talk to his relatives overseas on the phone. It would be getting dark soon. Tiago and I really should head back soon. "See, that's the thing I don't get," said Mr. Ford. All traces of my fifth-grade teacher were gone. He was acting alien now. When he put his hand to his forehead, his wrist bent back farther than any human wrist should have. "We can take you to the edge of the universe," Hundreds of billions of galaxies. It would take you longer than your planet has existed to go to all of them, even if you could travel at the speed of light, which you can't. But you and Tiago have families. Well, yeah, I said. I mean, no kids. I'm not married, but I want kids someday. You people live what, 80 years if you're lucky? What if I told you I was so old I don't even know what a year is? Don't you want that? Can you do that? I asked. Make me immortal? Marita is, I don't know. She's not aging, he said. She's maturing but not getting older. I've never seen a human do that. Maybe we can do that with you. Your grandparents didn't get to see 90. I can show you 900. My grandmother lived a good life, I said. That's all she needed. All I need. I think. Mr. Ford sighed. Fine, he said. But first I want to see something. I was standing right in front of him. A second ago I had been standing across the table from him. Now we were inches apart. He wrapped one hand around my neck and raised the other hand with the index finger out. What are you? It was too late. He plunged the finger into my forehead. It hurt, but maybe that was a good sign. If it had killed me, I wouldn't feel anything. I flashed back to my grandmother's death. She was 88. Her health had been failing for a long time. By the time we made it to her bedside, she was on life support. I held her hand for a moment. She was still warm. I didn't say anything. I hoped she could feel me there somehow. My grandmother never exercised a day in her life. I'm kind of impressed she held out that long. Mr. Ford withdrew his finger. I was back underwater. My lungs were about to burst. I needed air immediately, but I couldn't tell which way was up. Drowning is a nasty way to die. Before you go, your arms start to flap like you're trying to fly. It's involuntary, but it means you have maybe 20 seconds. I felt someone grab me by the arm. It was Tiago. I kicked. So did he. We broke the surface. I gasped. Once again, Tiago pulled me to the shore. Marita stood there watching us. She seemed kind of impressed. Are you okay? Asked Tiago. I am, I said once I had regained my breath. They said we could go. That's great, said Tiago. But how? Marita pointed to the wall. I realized that she was telling us to walk up it the same way she had walked down it. Are you going to be okay? I asked. I'll manage, she said. Take care. What did you see while I was down there? I asked. The water turned into a kaleidoscope, she said. We couldn't see you until you came back. Just a bunch of crystals. I looked at Tiago. He nodded. Walking up the walls proved as simple as placing one foot against the stone and leaning into it. Somehow, gravity shifted with us. We were still wet by the time we reached the car. You owe me a new phone, said Tiago. I realized that he had not left his in the car. Okay, I said. You saved my life. Twice. Are you going to tell anyone about this? I'll post about it, he said. No one will believe if we tell the full story, but we should tell it. Let the truth get out there. Good idea, I said. I arrived home to find 2 empty glasses on my dining room table. One was on its side and some liquid had stained the finish. My neighbor had already gone inside, or I would have asked him about his day. I heard through social media that Mr. Ford had died in a car accident. As I was going through some old knickknacks, I found the last birthday card my grandmother sent me before she died. I could have sworn that I threw it out. I know, were the only words on the inside. It was definitely her handwriting, but the card had had more than that inside. I'm not sure what to make of the knowledge that there are 4-dimensional beings out there that are more baffled by us than hostile towards us. If I ever seen my grandmother again, I will ask her what she thinks. Story 2. I'd like to share with you all an incident that actually happened in my little hometown. When it first happened, I was pretty young, so I just picked up bits and pieces from hearing adults talk. But that was rare. It's like they thought whatever happened, there was something in it that had to be shameful. It always scared the heck out of me when they did whisper about it. Now, after what happened here and knowing more, it's even scarier. For me, it started when I was nearly ending my shift at the clinic one night. It was a gloomy evening. We'd had a hunting accident earlier, but otherwise it was quiet. Mitch Lemieux, this guy who owns a garage on Cartier Boulevard, five-time arm wrestling champ down at the Caribou Bar, comes in panicking, looks spooked out of his mind. Never seen him so much as flinch before that. So I'm expecting some serious carnage. He's shouting for help, so I call 2 EMTs to go out with him. They come back with a half-naked girl. Her clothes are torn to ribbons, and what's left of them is soiled. She has cuts, bruises, and like pond scum or something over her. She has this deadness in her eyes like nothing I've ever seen. They get her in a blanket, a stretcher, and take her away. Everyone in the waiting room is standing now, and the only sound is Mitch panting. Because everyone knew that girl was Chantal Norman, the same Chantal who's been missing for 12 years. Since then, I found out a lot more details about her disappearance. I had to. I got specifics wherever possible. I'm going to lay them out here. The girls who went away. I may have heard more talk than some as a kid, because my big sister Virginia was friends with Chantal and the other two, Jenna and Lise. She was supposed to hang out with them one weekend. I remember she was talking about it all week. I guess Chantal's parents were out of town, so she was excited. When Thursday came around, she starts saying she doesn't feel like going anymore. My mom questions her, asks if she's had a fight with the girls, that sort of thing, even if she's pregnant. Virginia got upset and left the table saying, "You don't understand." By Saturday, she was starting to cry all the time for no good reason. She finally told my parents she knew something bad was going to happen that weekend. "They're going to die, Mom," she said. That sticks in my memory like it was yesterday. She was so certain it gave me chills. But nobody believed her. On Monday, Virginia came home from school hyperventilating. My mom could hardly get a word out of her. When she did, it was, "They're gone." Soon the story was all the town could talk about. The 3 girls disappeared that Saturday night. Had Virginia gone, she would have been the 4th. The night of the disappearance, Maestro's Pizza had a call from Chantal's phone at 8:47 p.m. for pizza. The driver recorded the delivery at 9:20 p.m. He said the girls looked okay when he delivered the pizza. All 3 were at the door. He said it seemed like one of them kept looking behind her, like someone else was there. He couldn't see anyone. A receipt from a nearby liquor store was time-stamped 9:39 p.m. The clerk recalls only seeing Jenna and Lise. Chantal was not yet 18, so that may have been why. They did not seem distressed to him, although one kept checking her watch. At 10:14 p.m. and 10:17 p.m., 2 calls were found in Chantal's phone records. Neither call was local. One was to a law office 300 miles away. The recorded voicemail was 1 minute and 16 seconds of breathing. The second call was to a residence on Prince Edward Island. The woman who answered the phone said the caller asked, "Is he there?" and hung up before she could get clarification. She'd never heard of Chantal and had no idea why Chantal would be calling her. The law office said the same. That was the last confirmed time anyone heard from Chantal, Jenna, and Lise. At 11:29 p.m., a 911 call was placed from an unknown phone. A woman is heard whispering, "Send someone, please." And when the dispatcher asks where, she says, "We don't know," and the call drops. None of the girls' parents could say it was their daughter. It may have been a coincidence. The next day, after not being able to reach her daughter or Chantal, Lisa's mother calls for a wellness check. At 5:45 p.m. on Sunday, police arrive. Chantal's home is locked up. No signs of a break-in or a struggle. The alarm system was in home mode. The cars were still parked outside. The girls' phones had been left on the table. One was even left charging. Nothing had been stolen. Slices of pizza were out on the coffee table, partially eaten. Half-drunk drinks were beside the plates. It's like they'd just been in the middle of having a good time, drinking, listening to music when they suddenly dropped everything and ran off. It's not even clear how they locked up, because the house keys were found on the kitchen counter. Nobody could understand it. But there was a bad feeling about the whole thing. Even the cops say they felt dread when they approached the home. They felt what Virginia had felt before, that something terrible happened. The usual events that surround missing girls followed. Much of the community helped search surrounding wooded areas. Signs were put up everywhere, all the way to Montreal. It must have cost a ton. The bay was searched and a body was found. It turned out to be someone else. In fact, I believe that body was never positively identified. Police questioned everyone who knew the girls. Family, friends, neighbors. Nobody saw anything, heard anything particularly suspicious. They questioned Virginia a few times about why she didn't spend the weekend with them as planned and why she wasn't helping with the searches. To the latter, she said, "It's too late, the case gets stranger. That's when the weird stuff started to come out." I think every case that's low on leads like this is going to have some degree of strange tips that go nowhere. But these strange tips went somewhere. This is the stuff that made people not so keen to talk about it. The first strange report was from an old man, an ex-cop, in a town an hour away. The night the girls disappeared, he was having trouble sleeping. This was around 1 a.m., he says. While he's taking a leak, he thinks he hears someone in his yard. It sounded like it might have been giggling. Figuring it was kids, he ran out with a bat just to scare them. When he got to his backyard, which backs up to the tree line, he saw 3 girls holding hands and running single file into the woods. He ran after them, because there's a lot of woods back there. He was afraid they'd get lost or hurt. When he got to the woods, he couldn't find them. They were just gone. He felt stupid about the whole thing, so he kept it to himself, until he heard 3 girls had gone missing. A search was conducted in the area, dogs brought in, but nothing was ever found to say the girls were actually there. It creeps me out thinking about it, because if it was them, why would they be there? It's a long walk from Chantal's home to this town. Why would they walk all that way to wander into the woods? Chantal's parents were questioned repeatedly if they'd received demands. Someone said they'd seen Chantal's father meeting with some men in black suits the week before the girls disappeared. They were getting into a black car when he'd been spotted. Chantal's dad was a roofing contractor, so top-secret meetings wouldn't have been his thing. He denied it at first. Later he said they were hardware salesmen. So why'd he start by lying? What hardware salesmen act like that? It didn't help their case that Chantal's mother believed the girls were dead. She said it was because of something that happened while she was out of town. At the hotel where she was staying, 3 birds got into the lobby the same night the girls disappeared. Staff got a 40-foot ladder to get the birds down, but when they got up there, the birds were nowhere to be seen. Why exactly 3 birds? That was their spirits. They're with God now. That's what she used to tell people. I guess that brought her comfort. Someone told Virginia about it once, and she said, "They're nowhere near God." Some people shared that opinion because when police went through their search history, there was a lot of odd stuff you wouldn't expect popular cheerleader types to be into. There was a lot of occulty stuff and conspiracy theories. One weird search phrase stood out on the report: Can a TV signal make you do things? And variants on it. The last item in Chantal's history, at 10:01 p.m., was for a mountain cottage in Arkansas. They were in contact with someone with the handle The Prince. Not many details of those interactions came out. I heard from someone in the police department that he was telling them to do things. There was only one of those he felt he could tell me. This guy had asked them to do something to Virginia. He wanted them to bring her out to this old woodshed back behind the yellow house on Nelson Radad. That was supposed to happen the night they disappeared. Think about it, he told me. What do you think would have happened to your sister if she went that night? What would have happened? His look told me this was something that kept him up at night thinking about it. I know the feeling. They were never able to track down who the prince was, from what I understand. Efforts to contact him online failed. One of their mutual friends heard Chantal talking about some guy named Vincenzo. How Vincenzo knew everything and told them things nobody's supposed to know. She said, Chantal told her Vincenzo took them out to a secret place. Another friend said while sitting with some other friends, he saw Chantal talking on her phone at school. She was talking for 5 minutes or so. She came back and said it was Vincenzo. But everyone at the table swore she didn't even have a phone in her hand. She was just facing the wall, talking. Whether real or made up, Vincenzo was another dead end. And there were sightings of the girls everywhere. Sometimes locally, but some claims came from as far as Vancouver and even Australia. Sometimes in the woods, sometimes walking along the street, at the beach. Someone said he was sure it was Chantal who begged him for money in Toronto. Someone else said they saw the girls along the street on a vacation to Mexico. She said the girls retreated into the crowd when she called to them. Why would they run away like that? She asked. Maybe the strangest was a guy who could point to some photos he and his wife had taken at a party. In the background, 2 girls and part of a third that looked just like them. The thing is, the photos were at a watch party for the fall of the Berlin Wall. The girls were infants at the time those pictures had been taken. There was a lot mysterious about this case. Why'd they disappear? How'd they get where they were going? Was someone else involved? Where'd they go? Were they dead? The odds of them still being alive were extremely low. Nobody believed we'd ever see them again. With the reappearance of Chantal, the question now was, where have they been for the past 12 years? And where are the others? Chantal Mitch told me, officers, everyone who'd listen, how he found her. He'd been out on his own land, his father's land. Technically acres and acres of it, going way back into the woods, hunting deer. He was up in his stand way back there having a few beers. He saw some movement far off in the trees. He was ready to take a shot, but something made him hold on. Just the way it's moving, too slow and unsteady for a deer, even a wounded one. It's a sickly walk. He keeps watching as it comes closer. It's a person, he's sure. He'd normally be furious someone was trespassing, but this is too weird. She's slowly walking straight toward the tree where his stand is, and he can now see it's this half-naked, beaten girl. Wherever she's been, I don't ever want to go there, he told me that night. Sent a shudder right through me. He reeked of something like a scorched tar smell, and all I could think was that she'd been to hell and back. The ER docs concluded she was physically okay. She needed food and warmth, but otherwise just bruised up. What she needed was psychological evaluation. Whatever peace and quiet she had in her room ended quick. Police arrived to question her. Her parents, now divorced, were called, and they all wanted to know where she'd been, if she was okay. She still had that dazed, mindless look, even with her mother caressing her. When she finally spoke, she gave an address. They tried to get her to say more, but that's all she'd tell them. Just the address. It was a local one on the other side of town past the old drive-in. Not many people live out that way anymore. Police sent someone to the address immediately, hoping the other girls would be there. I found out from a friend that they had trouble finding it because the yard was so overgrown that the house number was covered. The house itself was sagging, a rotten old house with busted-out windows. 2 cops were checking it out, and even with 2 of them, both armed, the place made them nervous. They go inside and find an old mattress and a bunch of dolls on the floor. They heard a thudding sound from upstairs. One of them went up to check it out, while the other looked around downstairs. The one upstairs went room to room looking for the source of the noise. He comes to one room where he sees the window shutters are open. He thinks he's seen this in the movies before. It's just the wind. What next? A cat jumps out. So he goes and closes the shutters. Then it occurs to him, there isn't any wind. He searches the upstairs and finds no one there. He runs downstairs and asks his partner if he's seen anyone. He hasn't. He's been flipping through a book he found. It's a book about the Nazis with Polaroids of children between the pages. They decide to get out of the creepy place and come back in daylight. On the way out, they both notice the back door's been opened. They were sure it was shut when they'd arrived. Investigators looked all over the property the next few days. One of the upstairs rooms has a lot of blood stains. They're tested and come back inconclusive. The Polaroids are reviewed, but no one recognizes the children. There wasn't even a hint that Chantal or the others had been in that house. They can't figure out why Chantal was so fixated on that address. The owner of the house, according to records, made the purchase in 1974. Nobody in town had ever seen or heard of this person. More, as far as police could determine, this person didn't exist. Others still living in the area say they've seen vehicles at the home before, years back. Never the same vehicle twice, but they never met anyone. Hospital staff left Chantal's mother stay with her the rest of the night. She didn't want to leave her side. She was afraid of losing her again, perhaps. One of the nurses heard her mother asking her, "Where were you all that time, Chantal?" and saying things like, "You don't look a day older." And Chantal said, "I wasn't anywhere." Technically, my shift was over, but with what happened, I stayed on to help. And I was nosy. I didn't try to go visit Chantal. I never really knew my sister's friends. So I was surprised when I heard Chantal wanted to see me. I figured it would have to do with Virginia, and I was right. She asked me if Virginia could come see her. I just imagined how much she missed her friends and family after all this time, so I was quick to promise I'd try my best. Virginia had left town 11 years ago. She rarely even called. Something about the incident changed her. But I had her number, of course, so I called and told her everything that happened. Up to, "She's been asking to see you, V. Maybe she'll tell you more." I was sure she would say she's hopping on a plane. Instead, she said, "Chantal is dead. They're all dead. They've been dead all this time." I said, "V, I was looking right at her. She spoke to me. She's on an IV drip. She's alive. I don't know who or what that is. All I know is if I come home, I'll never be seen again." And she hung up. I called back a few times. She wouldn't answer. My parents couldn't believe it. She wouldn't answer for them either. I couldn't go face Chantal with that news, so I just went home. I spent the night beating myself up about it. I could hardly sleep. Around 3 a.m., I heard faint knocking on my front door. All sorts of ideas went through my mind. What if Virginia decided to fly in after all? Before I could go to the door to look, my phone rang. It was Virginia. I answered and asked right away if that was her at the front door. She told me she had a bad feeling and woke up in tears. Sure, something had happened to me. "Don't answer the door," she said. "Please." I didn't. I heard the knock again and I didn't answer. V and I weren't close, but I trusted her. I spent the rest of the night hiding in my own home because she really freaked the shit out of me. I found out the next day that Chantal had gotten out of her bed during the night around 2:45 a.m. while her mother slept. Hospital cameras show her walking out calmly. Nobody notices. And just like that, she disappeared again. Nobody's seen her since. No idea where she went after leaving the hospital, and still no idea where she'd been for the past 12 years. There have been searches, but I'm sure it'll be all dead ends again. Story 3, Part 1, The Case. Following the family line, I'm the lead detective in our rural town of Julinsburg. My father was before me, and his father before him. It's not nearly as interesting as it sounds. Being a detective, at least not in my town, it's more paperwork than anything. My office is dark and cramped, old wood paneling on the walls and the smell of musk and old leather. And maybe mold, too. There's never any crime. Everyone here knows everyone. Neighbors leave their doors unlocked, kids play and walk together all over town. No news spreads slower than a day or two at most. We were all real close. Days stay pretty standard, but I won't bore you with too much detail. Basically, wake up, grab a cup of coffee, take a dump, head to work, more coffee, paperwork, and maybe joking around with a few deputies about some idiotic excuse to get out of a parking ticket. Today I woke up feeling productive, for some odd reason, and decided it would be a pretty good day to go through some old files and clean them out, make room for some new ones. No one around the department likes to clean, so those food-stained, yellowing documents have been sitting there for years, maybe more. I'm no better. My eyes catch them every single day, yet I continue to avoid them like my life depended on it. Hell, if I worked slowly enough, I could stretch it over my entire shift. As boring and repetitive as it was, time seemed to pass by quicker than usual as I filed old, closed cases and made rooms for the more current ones. We're talking stacks upon stacks of parking tickets, petty theft, vandalism in the smallest degree, court shit, nothing investigative or even worth batting an eye at, really. And then a particular manila folder. It wasn't marked green. We mark all the closed and completed files with a green Sharpie, which was odd. In a town this small and quaint, having any unsolved cases was extremely out of the ordinary. And even more weird, I'd never even heard of this specific case. I've worked here for years and have been a member of the town my entire life, and at no point did I ever hear anyone speak of it. The first page was a newspaper headline. Serial murders plague town. Police are struggling to find any solid leads. Reading on, I found out that 3 men were found murdered in their own homes. No fingerprints, no footprints, not a single drop of bodily fluid was left behind apart from the victim's blood. There were no hair fibers, no fingernail marks. Whoever had committed the murders left without a trace. And I say that it was one person because the cases had one common factor: the way the victims were killed. It's characteristic of a serial killer to have a specific killing method, their legacy, if you will. In this instance, the similarities are as followed. All 3 victims are male, various ages, heights, and wealth. They were all murdered in their homes. They all had their mouths stretched so wide their jaws were snapped. Their eyes had been messily scooped from the sockets and shoved deep into the men's throats. Their arms, legs, and torso were littered with some strange markings, all of them sliced with surgical precision. There was no note on what language they could possibly be in. The new few pages were printouts of photos, the crime scene. It was horrifying. Now I've seen blood, and a lot of it. So when I'm looking at a picture, completely in awe at the sheer amount that's plastered over the walls, sheets, and floor, you know it's gruesome. With my stomach churning, I flipped over the pictures. planning to continue reading the file for when I had more time to sit down and do some research. Plus, if I looked at the photos any longer, I was scared I would lose my coffee from this morning. Fucking sick. I spent the rest of the day finishing up what I had started, signed my name on a few documents, and clocked out 10 minutes early. While walking out, I decided to stop by the front desk. Amanda works there, young and new, but surely sweet and very passionate about being an officer one day. Have you ever heard of the unsolved murders from a few years back? I mean, about 10 years or so. She said, squinting a bit and furrowing her brow. Not really. Maybe no one talks about it because it's still an open case. Dunno. I think that'd be even more reason to talk about it. How can you solve a case if you pretend it doesn't exist? I couldn't tell you, she shrugged. Maybe it's gone cold. Has been 10 years after all. You know, it's hard to solve anything old like that. Trails go cold, bunch of dead ends. But 3 men were violently murdered, I said, more to myself than Amanda. We owe it to the family to keep trying. The document felt heavy in my hand, as imagined all the families who still have no closure after losing a loved one. It would kill me to not know who took my family member away, and to think the police have given up on them. That's not what we stand for. Amanda gave me a nod and an understanding smile. Look into it then. Don't get discouraged, though. The killer's probably long gone, and we both know it. She wasn't lying. Yeah, I knew it was probably going to be a case that wouldn't get solved. It had just been too long. But if I could put my skills into something like this, I do believe it would mean more to the family than if I never gave it a single chance. I didn't even bother to eat when I got back to my place, just throwing myself onto the couch with my cat, my laptop, and that case file. After the photos, there were a few police notes, all handwritten. It explained how the first suspects were the men's wives, being as they were the only ones home, apart from the children, when the crimes were committed. Plus, the spouse is always the first suspect. They didn't record any conversations or type out any transcripts, but they gave each woman a chance to write out a statement. Below are all 3 of the statements the wives left. Mrs. Hagen, I have no idea what happened. We ate dinner, watched TV like we always do. Trevor felt exhausted from work and decided to head to bed early that night, like around 8, I believe. It was pretty quiet for the remainder of the night until I went upstairs to grab something from the master bathroom. That's when I saw it, and I'm sorry, I couldn't. It was just completely gruesome. I probably couldn't conjure up a scene like that in my worst nightmare. Blood was everywhere. The sheets, the walls, the carpet, everywhere. The whole room smelled like death and copper. It took days before I could speak. I was just too traumatized. I never even heard him scream. Mrs. Tremble. Well, it was the weekend, so me and my husband were off work, and our son Michael was off school. We spent the day shopping for groceries and then cleaning out our attic. We'd been planning on moving. Derek just didn't seem the same after he'd stopped talking to his close friends. I asked him what was wrong, but he always brushed it off and changed the subject. Anyway, we put things in boxes and made some space for any additional ones. Derek told me he was going to grab some blankets from the room and told Michael to hang back with me to help lift things. Of course, Mikey was young and couldn't lift more than a few pounds, but Derek made him feel like the real man of the house. He was such a good father. After about 30 minutes, I got a little confused on what was taking so long, so I went to check on him with Mikey in tow. So, yes, our son did see his father's mutilated body. His scream still echoes in my head every day. I don't even want to think about what I saw. It didn't even look like my husband anymore. Mrs. Mason. As much as I'd like to forget about that night, it's still so vivid in my head. It's like it just happened yesterday. I guess something like that haunts you for the rest of your life, you know. I lost my husband while he was just one room over. Our marriage had been rocky for the past year. He withdrew from me and was constantly gone. I remember a few years back when he would come home with the biggest smile and fingernail markings on his back. I was so sure he was having an affair. I was desperate to make it work. Nothing seemed to help. All he did was lock himself in our guest room, and I'd hardly see him. That room is right next to mine. Well, ours, you see what I'm saying? There was maybe a foot of wall separating us. How could I not have heard it? No thumping, no screaming, nothing. It was dead silent apart from my TV. The window wasn't open, no intruder. It's like something tore him apart from the inside, or in a split second. I still don't understand. I don't think I ever will. Now, there's a number of things about these statements that I find extremely unsettling, the most being this. None of the wives heard any screams or any sign of struggle, despite them being all within definite hearing range. Either the killer was able to muffle the men enough to prevent any sound, highly unlikely, or the wives are lying. Additionally, one of the women stated she checked on the husband only 30 minutes after he was alone. Now, that means the killer had to overpower the man after breaking in without a sound. Kill him and carve over 50 markings with the sharpest scalpel on earth, all in 30 minutes. It just didn't seem to quite add up. And when I say these markings were done so precisely, I mean scarily. Like they were carved with no harsh edges, all of them perfectly clean and equally as deep. I could only hope the victims weren't alive when this was happening. The more I read, the more confused I get. I do have a plan, though. Tomorrow I'm going to set up interviews with the women who were married to the victims and also the child who was present when his mother found the body. I'm going to see what they remember. Then I'm going to go into the evidence room and dig up anything else I can find on the matter. I know for a fact that one of the homes had a shitty surveillance camera, and even if a little, it should help. I'm going to revisit the crime scenes and write down, photograph, and document what I find. I don't have any set motive or suspects yet, but hopefully I will by the end of the week. If you'd like me to update, I absolutely will. If you have any ideas on where else I could look, I'm all ears. Let's find the monster that killed these men. Part 2. The interviews. I'm not going to waste any time. I'll jump straight into the details. The three widows all agreed to an interview with me, even with my request to have it on such short notice. They all called off work to join me separately, not shy at letting me know they were shocked to hear the case was being reinvestigated. I've been reading your comments, and the consensus seems to be an affair. That's what I chose to focus on. You've pointed out some extremely good points. It helps to get the wheels turning in my head. This isn't your average case, and I genuinely feel that it would be a lot easier to figure this shit out with numerous minds. As a disclosure, the participants of the interviews have all agreed on me writing notes and documenting what they say. They, however, have not given me permission to release any photos, videos, or voice recordings. I will respect their privacy, but my transcripts will be accurate and available for you all to read. Here is the important part of the interview with Mrs. Mason. I have labeled me as S for self, and her as M for Mason. S. I'm so glad you could make it here today, ma'am. I'm terribly sorry it has to be under such awful circumstances. M. You're more than welcome. When I heard you were going to reinvestigate the case, I was ecstatic. It's been too long with no answers. It's been a hard few years. S. I'm just going to ask you a few questions regarding the night of your husband's death. If you at any point feel uncomfortable or need a break, please let me know. Be honest and tell me any details, even as insignificant as they may seem. Is that okay? M. I'll do my absolute best, Detective. S. Okay. In your original statement, you wrote that your marriage had been going through some rough waters. Can you elaborate on that for me just a bit? M. Yeah. Howard and I had been married for about 6 years or so before things started happening that made me question his loyalties. We were fine, sex life was fine, we rarely fought. So when he came home with this mischievous look in his eyes and scratch marks, I couldn't understand why he'd see another woman, eh? This went on for weeks, every single night. He was always so defensive when I'd ask him about his whereabouts. He'd tell me he was with some buddies having a few drinks. He never smelt of alcohol. So you were confident he was having an affair? M. I could just tell and, never mind. S. No, please tell me. Anything you might say could spark something and give me a lead. Please. M. When, on the few occasions after the supposed affair that we were intimate, Howard looked at me with disgust, like he didn't want to see me naked. My body wasn't good enough for him. It really hurt my feelings, because he'd never been like that before. He used to always make me feel beautiful. C. Yeah, that's strange. Disapproval, and he withdrew from you as time grew on, correct? M. Yes. S. On the night he passed, he was staying in the guest room. M. Yeah, he always stayed in the guest room. And that's located right next to the master bedroom, and that's where you were when everything happened? M. Right. There's one thin wall that separates the rooms. I know that because I had my sister stay over a while back, and I could hear her snoring through that same wall. But you never heard a single peep coming from there while your late husband was being murdered? Nothing at all? M. Not one thing. Not even shuffling. He was always quiet, usually listening to music or watching videos on his computer with his headphones in, so it was just as quiet as usual. S. It isn't adding up. It seems impossible to kill someone and not have a sound come from them. Even with some kind of muffling, you'd still hear the struggle. M. You're exactly right. In these last few years, I have been telling myself that he was killed instantly when whoever it was broke into the room and the mutilation was happening on his dead body. I knew there was no way Mrs. Mason could be right. This killer was after blood in the most horrific sense of the word. They had scooped out the eyes, for fuck's sake. They wanted the victims to suffer. There wasn't anything noteworthy for the rest of the interview, just the same details of the crime scene that was written in the initial report. I began to suspect the other woman, the one he was having the affair with. Perhaps she never knew he was married, and when she found out, she sent someone to murder him. Or maybe murdered him herself. The theory is all I can assume right now, and as odd as it sounds, I hope I'm not simply going insane. I'm beginning to wonder if this killer was even human. Nevertheless, I continued on with the second interview, the one belonging to Mrs. Hagen. Below is the same as the previous, my notes from the conversation. I'll skip the introduction and get straight to the information, with my main focus on finding out if there was AI possibility of infidelity. Again, I am labeled as S, and Mrs. Hagen is H. S. Ma'am, as odd as this may sound, I'm going to ask you a few questions about the possibility of an affair in your marriage. If H. No, there's no way. My husband was a religious man. He refused to even sleep with me until after we were officially married. There's no way he'd been sleeping with anyone else. S. Not to sound mean, but people do have secrets. He may not have been 100% honest with you. H. I really don't think so. That wasn't like him. S. Entertain the idea for me real quick, if there was absolutely anything that may have signaled him seeing someone else, staying out late, keeping his phone close, leaving out details of how his day went. Anything? H. No, I can't think of anything. When he wasn't home or working, he would sometimes go down to the bar with some guys and watch the game. He liked basketball. He was a very honest and trustworthy man. I never had any reason to doubt him. He was home exactly when he'd said he'd be, always. Never smelled of perfume, wasn't freshly showered. He never cared if I was on his phone. He even let me borrow it when mine was being fixed for a few days. He wasn't having an affair, I'm sure of it. After that interview, I was beginning to get a bit discouraged. My affair trail may be going cold. She sounded so sure of her husband's loyalty. Nothing even made her suspect the possibility of him cheating on her. Driving home, I decided to make a stop at Justin's pub, the bar her husband and his friends used to attend, and ask the staff if he had been there with another woman. Now, this is interesting. I asked every single server there, including the bartender who'd been working there for about 25 years, showed them a photo of the victim before he was killed, and asked if he had been seen with another woman besides his wife, who I had also obtained a photo of. They all had the same answer, even the bartender. No, he never came in here. Maybe I've seen him at the grocery store or church, but he was never here. I've never served that man before. Boom. In the span of 24 hours, I had caught the victim in a lie. My guess is that his wife never thought to even look into whether or not he was telling the truth, because she never had any reason to suspect him. Going to a bar to watch sports was an innocent enough cover after all. You'd be surprised at how much people can get away with when there is a high level of trust, as twisted as that may sound. And it looks like Trevor took full advantage of his wife. I was sure he was sleeping around. Why else would he lie to his wife? So 2 down, 1 to go. And in the statement, Mrs. Tremble said her husband was withdrawn from her, stopped hanging out with his friends, and was ready to pick up and move away. Was he trying to escape someone? An affair gone wrong, and maybe he was scared. Maybe she was threatening to tell his wife. By now, I was pretty confident in my lead and was ready for this last interview, although this last interview would be just a bit different because it will include Michael, the victim's only son. He was very young when it happened, but even his mother admitted that he had seen the gruesome body that once belonged to his father, and that'll fuck up even the most mentally stable person. He's apparently 18 years old now. As with the other interview, I have written down the dialogue and statements. Of course, told the mother and son that they could stop the questioning at any time if they felt it was necessary, and that every ingle detail was crucial in solving this 10-year murder. Michael will be labeled as M, me as S, and Mrs. Tremble as T. S. This first round of questions will be directed mostly to you, ma'am. Just a few about the day of the murder, some about the time leading up, and then I'll be asking Michael some as well. M and T, okay. S. Mrs. Tremble, in your statement, it said that your family was about to relocate. Where were you moving to and why? T. Arizona, because we wanted to always be in warmer weather, and because I have family who live over more that way, it's just easier. S. Did it ever, at any point, feel like your husband was trying to escape something? T. What do you mean, ass? Did it seem like he was rushing, wanting to get out quickly? T. Not that I could tell. We conversed and started looking for homes within a week, but we had entertained the idea for about a year, so it didn't feel like it was a quick decision. Cess. What about your late husband, not talking to his close friends much? Can you elaborate more on that specific detail? T. He'd hang out with him about 3 or more times a week. I stayed home and helped Mikey with his homework, so I never minded him staying out for a few hours after work. He never had any friends come over to our place, and I always figured that it was because he wanted some time away from the house. Now that I had time to think about it, it does seem a bit odd. Suddenly, in the span of a week or so, he never spoke of them. He ignored his phone calls, even changed his number at one point. It was like he was pissed at them. Guess, did you ever meet these friends? T. I've met all the men that were buddies with my husband. Most of them had children who attended the same school as Mikey. Some of them would just ask me how he was doing while I was out shopping for dinner. And I know you've been asked this before, but you're sure the other two victims of the murders weren't a part of your husband's friend group? T. I'm sure. He'd mentioned their name a few times, nothing even worth remembering. I'd say they only knew of each other because of the small population. Everyone knows everyone here. Well, you know how it is. I hardly knew those men myself. After that, I was sure I had obtained all the information I needed. My opinion is this. The wife never met the husband's close friends because he was never with his friends. He too was having an affair. I know it seems like a stretch to assume all these men were cheating, but it's the only thing I can think that would tie them together. They never even hung out with each other. Before calling it quits, I moved my attention over to Michael. Just as I suspected, he was awkward and silent. He would stare off and be deep in thought. I don't think he heard a single word spoken between his mother and I. I don't blame the kid, though. You never really recover from seeing your own father carved like a Thanksgiving turkey. Michael or Mikey, which do you prefer? M. I don't care, either one. I understand you were very young when this happened, and that recalling any of the few details will not only be changeling but emotionally painful for you, so I'm going to ask just a few. Is that okay? Mom. Yeah, that's fine. C. Before your mother went and checked in the room, did you hear anything? Footsteps, movement. Anything coming from the direction of the room your father was in? T. Nothing I can remember. I was helping her move boxes, and that's all I heard. The sound of cardboard on plywood, Mom's humming. The rest of the house was quiet. Think I heard the dishwasher running, ass. And how much time was there between your father leaving to get the blankets versus when you and your mother went to check on him? M. Maybe 20 minutes? 25 minutes. If I'm being honest here, I don't think it even took that long for this thing to kill my dad. Why do you say thing? M. Because whatever killed my dad was not human. It's not normal. Nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, could have carved that shit into him in such a short amount of time. My dad was a strong man. I couldn't name one guy that could overpower him. Whatever this was, I have a feeling it just... I don't know. There was no sign of a struggle, that's all I'm saying. That last statement really stuck with me. The fact that he believed something inhuman did this to his father. I get chills down the entirety of my spine just thinking about what type of demonic fuck would do this. And why? What could these men have done that would piss off something inhuman enough to warrant that kind of death? After the nauseated feeling in my stomach grew, I began to question whether I really wanted to know the answer to that question. I do have one more thing to report, and that's what I saw on the video recording. It happened to be in the Tremble's household. I got permission from them during the interview to watch the video and document my findings. I got my hands on that tape within the next hour. As exhausted as I was, 3 interviews later, I needed to see what was on this video. My hopes weren't high, considering police had been over this tape before, and nothing was ever found of it. I knew it was worth a try. The start of the video was like any other, slow and boring. It showed basic household activities: laundry, cleaning, watching television, eating. I never fast-forwarded it, not wanting to miss a single thing. When it finally got to the time the husband was grabbing something from the bedroom, I was on the edge of my seat. Odd, but not groundbreaking. He shut the door behind him. Who shuts the door if they're just grabbing something from the room? A part of me wondered if he was trying to hide something from the camera. From under the door, in the small crack, I can see his shadow moving around. Just at the 10-minute mark, there's another, smaller shadow that passes by the door. The cops have a note that said it was only the family cat, which I found to be an ignorant statement, because the cat wasn't in the room when the husband was found, and cats don't typically have two legs. No, I don't think there was any foul play with the police work, but I do believe it was the act of a lazy officer who was sure this tape didn't include anything vital since the door was closed. I'd have to disagree with him. What I understand is that the victim was on the left of the door, and the shadow came from the right. Remember when I said that this happened at the 10-minute mark? Yeah. So this man was overpowered, murdered, and carved all within 20 minutes, not 30 like we had thought. Michael may be right. This thing can't possibly be human. Oh, and one more thing. Not sure if it's anything important, but after the police searched the room and moved the body out, I could make out a strand of something that fell off the victim. It was hard to tell with the grainy quality, but I think it might be a small stand of rope? There was no rope burns on the man. Any thoughts on that? Next, I'm going into the evidence room. Then I'm going to get the autopsy report. I've sent an email to the original medical examiner who looked at the bodies requesting an interview, but I have yet to hear back from him. If you can think of any questions to ask the examiner, please let me know in the comments. I think he might be a huge help if we pry the right way. Hopefully this gets us one step closer to whoever, or whatever, did this. Part 3. The official reports. The official autopsy and toxicology reports are in. Here we go. This is going to be a quick and short update because I know you guys want to see the findings. Report of investigation by County Medical Examiner. Decedent: Trevor. Redacted. Redacted. Hagen. Caucasian. Male, 38 years of age. Home address. Redacted. Type of death: violent, suspicious, unusual or unnatural, found dead. Comment: victim was found dead in his room by his wife. Due to the amount of blood, police were unable to immediately confirm the cause of death. Description of body: partially clothed. Eyes removed. Facial hair: no. Weight: 203 pounds. Height: 5'10". Marks and wounds: the body was mutilated. The victim's arms, legs, and torso were covered in strange markings. After cleaning them, I found that with the direction of the skin, the way it was pushed, it seems that they were cut from the inside of the victim. The markings are like none I have ever seen before. Photos will document them and find the origin of what they mean. There seems to be 3 separate markings, which may mean 3 different words or phrases that were used continuously on the body. The victim's eardrums had been shattered. It is presumed that he was unable to hear during the TOD. The victim's skull was intact, apart from the jaw that was snapped. No brain damage was found. Eyes had been removed from the sockets and were found lodged in the victim's throat. After checking the lungs, suffocation was found to not be the cause of death. Internal organs were intact, as were the bones. There was one healed break along the wrist, though it showed on the victim's medical history that it was broken at the age of 12. After pooling analysis, direction of blood flow, I have concluded to the best of my abilities that these wounds occurred or were inflicted pre-mortem. Probable cause of death: significant blood loss. Manner of death: homicide. That was the official autopsy report for Trevor Hagen, and it confirmed my worst thoughts, that this had all happened to him while he was still alive. Also, it uncovered another piece of information that his eardrums were busted. This was not listed in the police report, probably because there was no way they'd be able to tell without a thorough examination. Bones and organs were intact. I had no idea what I was getting myself into when I took on this case, and lately I've been thinking that I'm in over my fucking head. The other two men also had complete autopsy reports. They are all extremely similar. Apart from the different ages, heights, weights, and names, it was nearly identical. The wounds are the same. Both of the other victims had busted eardrums. Neither had any brain damage or broken bones. Just to give you some additional information, here is a brief description of the other two victims. Decedent, Derek, redacted, Tremble, Caucasian, male, 36 years of age, height 6'2", weight 279 pounds. Decedent, Howard, redacted, Mason, Caucasian, male, 42 years of age, height 5'8", weight 191 pounds. There was one specific thing that managed to stand out to me, and you guys probably caught this as well. Now, I'm not 100% sure this could mean something, but the coincidence is too strong. The victim's eardrums, the eyes being ripped out, the throats being clogged with said eyeballs. Hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. And the medical examiner said there were 3 separate markings, all meaning 3 separate phrases that were scattered. Could those markings have said each of those 3 consistently over the body? Next, I was able to stop by the office, let myself in, and fax the toxicology reports directly to my house. While I was still in there, I figured now would be a good time to look into the evidence left over from the crime. There, to my utter surprise, was not a lot. The clothing, some old blood samples, hair that belonged to the victims, fingerprint analysis which found no other prints in the rooms, police statements that were copied from the original report found in the case file. I looked for over an hour in all different bins for that fiber I saw on the security footage, yet it was nowhere to be found. So the police in this town are probably incompetent, and I left empty-handed. I took the advice of some commenters and I called my dad, who indeed was the lead detective when this case was first opened. My grandfather unfortunately passed years ago, so he told me he remembers hearing about the murders and was working a suicide case of a local middle schooler at the time. Because the parents of the student were begging my dad not to abandon the case, he continued to work on that through the entirety of the investigation. He did, however, tell the department to enlist him for help if they needed it, but they assured him that they could handle it. The sheriff was the one who decided to keep any detective work away from the case. It went to a professional forensics team, and by the time the DP decided they couldn't handle the case alone, all trails had gone cold, and my father was told that all leads were a dead end. The case was too far gone to solve. He did tell me he'd run over his box of documents and that I was free to look into it, though there was probably nothing that applied to my case. Below, I will write out the official toxicology reports, which, of course, were the same for each victim. Seems that there was more similarities than I had originally thought. These cases were crazy similar. Drug screen result: no drugs found in the victim's specimen. Apart from Mr. Mason, who had slight traces of acetaminophen in his. This was found to be from a headache reliever he had taken earlier in the day. Cannabinoid, marijuana. Screen, negative. Blood alcohol, negative. Date specimen, received 05/08/2006. Types of specimen, 4. Blood vials. Date specimen. Test. Performed 05/08/2006. Specimen submitted by coroner. Any sedatives or other drugs strong enough to knock out each victim would have definitely been present in the blood. There was no way it would have been missed. There officially were no drugs involved in the murders, apart from a tiny trace of headache reliever. Safe to say, I was more than a little surprised at just how little I understood about this case, and nothing seems to add up, only bringing forward more questions. It's exhausting. On a better note, I did receive an email reply from the medical examiner of all three bodies, and he is willing to sit down with me for a few questions. He, too, is pretty perplexed by this whole thing and wants to help as much as he can. If you have any questions you'd like me to ask, comment them below and I will. In the next update, I will have interviewed the examiner, hopefully decoded or have come close to deciphering the odd marks plaguing the bodies. I'm going to go through my dad's files, and me and the old sheriff are going to have a little discussion. There should have been no reason a lead detective was kept off the case and could have been a crucial personnel to solving the case when it was still fresh. He has explaining to do, having an actual detective not work a three-person murder case, but keeping them on a suicide case the police could have easily handled by themselves? Fucking stupid, and I'm pretty sure the sheriff just wanted all the credit for solving the case. Looks like he bit himself in the ass on that one, if you ask me. Anyway, we'll update ASAP.